Welcome, Facebook friends and family. This is Love Coach Scott Catamas, and I am here with my teaching partner, the one and only, the magnificent Trish.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday.
And happy Friday. And it's another episode of Straight Talk. And what are we talking about tonight, Trish?
What are we talking about today? Managing triggers, managing difficult people, managing relationships, and managing yourself in it as well.
It's so hard dealing with people. If only they just would behave the way they're supposed to behave, right?
Scott, behave like I want you to.
And I have to automatically read your mind and know exactly what that means and looks like, right?
Oh, of course. Don't you know what we've known each other for this long. You've seen me, you know what my rhythm is in the morning. Don't you know how I'm feeling at all moments? Don't you know how to deal with all my triggers? Gosh, Scott.
Exactly. So welcome. I want to just acknowledge all the people that are in our Zoom room. I see a lot of familiar faces and names and some people that I haven't seen before. So welcome. And I think Trish and I are in an especially playful mood because we did a really wonderful workshop for a couple of hours earlier today for the International One World International Tantra Festival.
Yeah.
It was cool. We had over 100 people that registered from all over the world, and it was fun. So we've kind of got, it was a good warm up for tonight's class.
Yeah, we're feeling on fire right now.
Yeah, I think so. A little punch drunk, but definitely feeling on fire. So we love chat. And so please feel free. We really would love to hear, what are your thoughts? What are your questions? What are your considerations? Because we're here to be of service to you. We do have some tools that we're definitely going to teach tonight, but we also definitely want to hear from any of you in our Zoom room chat room. And we also really enjoy hearing from our friends on Facebook. So when I'm talking, you might see Trish looking down at her phone, and she's probably checking the Facebook room and see what's happening. And likewise, I certainly will do that as well. A great way to start is, can I take people through the what am I telling myself practice? Is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah,
first?
go ahead.
That's good.
Take it away. I love that one.
Okay.
And I invite you to invite them to type it in too.
Yeah. Okay. So this is actually no exaggeration. It's my favorite tool. And I've been using it for about 15 years now, and it's really changed how I experience reality. So play along. I want to encourage everybody who's watching, put aside everything else you're doing and just drop in and do this practice with Trish and myself for the next, it's going to take about 10 minutes. We're going to do a couple of rounds of a practice, and it's going to teach you my favorite tool. So it's a really good use of 10 minutes. Definitely better than multitasking. All those scrolling and all those other things, they'll all be waiting for you in 10 minutes from now. So give us your best attention. Okay? Thanks. So I want you to start by acknowledging within yourself, this is all a practice within yourself, a painful thought you've been running through your mind recently. Pick one that you're going to work with. A painful thought you've been running through your mind recently. It can be a painful thought about another person. He doesn't love me. She doesn't respect me. He'll never change. She always makes me wrong. It can be one thought like that about another person. Or it can also be a painful thought that you run about yourself. I'm not good enough. I'll never make enough money. I'll never find true love. You know, we all have those kind of shame-based thoughts that we run. So I'm asking you to pick just one. And if you'd be willing to close your eyes and really run this painful thought through your mind 5, 7, maybe 10 times. Running that painful thought through your mind. And while you're doing that, if you could please notice how your body responds. How does your body respond? Does it react as you run that painful thought? So, taking an inventory of what's going on with you, and I invite you to come back into, kind of with us and opening your eyes. And was there or are there places in your body that contracted or reacted to that painful thought? Trish, did you do the practice? Can I use you as the person to share about the experience?
Yeah. Of course.
Cool.
So I felt this painful thought in the back of my neck and in my shoulder right in here. It kind of feels like a nauseous feeling.
Yeah. Okay. And for those of you who are doing the practice, and hopefully all of you are, it's not essential that you're in the awareness of a place that's reacting in your body, but it's helpful. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put into the chat box, I'm going to also read it so you can write this down. I'm going to give you a short phrase. And the phrase is, the story that I am telling myself is ... That's the phrase. The story that I'm telling myself is. And I ask all of us to do this practice again. But this time when we're doing the practice, please, as you choose the same painful thought that you ran last time, but add this phrase to the start. So if your painful thought was, he doesn't love me, you're going to say in your mind, the story I'm telling myself is that he doesn't love me. The story that I'm telling myself is she doesn't respect me. The story I'm telling myself is that I'm not good enough, right? You're going to add that phrase and you're going to run it through your mind. Again, phrase in the thought, 5, 6, maybe 10 times. And notice how your body responds this time. Do you experience the thought differently? Does your body react differently? Okay, so let's close our eyes. Run that phrase, the story I'm telling myself is, and then your painful thought. The story that I'm telling myself is, and the painful thought. The story that I'm telling myself is, and the painful thought. And begin noticing, how does your body respond this time? How does your body react? Does it respond differently? And I would love to invite any of you to put into the chat box, either on Facebook, for those of you that are on Facebook, or for certainly our Zoom friends, our Zoom room friends, if anybody's willing to put in what they noticed that might have been different. Did you notice a difference and what that difference was? And since right now you're the only person, Trish, I can directly talk to, did you notice a difference?
I did. So what happened is that I no longer felt it here, but it just didn't have a story attached to it. It didn't feel like there was any pain or emotion to it. It reminded me that it was just a story. It's just an insecurity playing out.
Nice. So everybody's experience is usually different, but I want to acknowledge that I've been teaching this for like 15 years, and most of the time people notice a pretty significant difference. And so it's powerful. It's a powerful experience. And for those of you who did notice a difference, which usually is like 90% of the people, what's happening is you're changing the neurological pathway of your brain. You're going from reptile brain, which is reactive, into frontal lobe, which is responsive. And that's pretty much what we want to teach in how to manage triggers. Because when we get abducted by our reptile brain, we react.
Right.
When we're in our frontal lobe, that's where the empathy center of the brain is and the observer part of the brain. And so a lot of the tools that Trish and I are going to teach you tonight are ways to recognize how we might get abducted by our reptile brain and how to move it into the frontal lobe. And so the practice we just did demonstrates that just by adding those words, I'm telling myself the story, or the story that I'm telling myself is, just adding those words changes the neurological pathway of our brain.
Scott, it's coming at a really great time because everyone's going into their family situations. It's the holidays. There's a lot of people who are spending time either on Zoom or it's, heightened places of stress because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And people are, tight spaces and tight places are cause a lot of frustration and insecurities to play out. So when you're having an experience with one of your family members or maybe your neighbor or your friend group or the people that you're quarantining with, like that's a place where you're like, oh, if you can just drop out, remind yourself that you're telling yourself a story that this person's a grump and a long string of curse words generally, that you can be like, oh, actually this person is really, yeah, like a really beautiful human. And I'm having the experience and I'm telling myself this story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go solo for a moment here to just talk a little bit about the reptile brain and the frontal lobe, the forebrain, because this is the biological way to manage our triggers. So a little bit about the reptile brain. The reptile brain is the oldest part of the human being, and it's oldest on two levels. When conception takes place, the very first thing formed in the first 24 hours after conception, it ends up about the size of a walnut in the back part of our brain, and it's our reptile brain. And that little thing that forms our entire brain stem and then our entire body and our it goes reptile brain, brain stem, spinal cord, and then the body fills in around it. Literally, we are built around the reptile brain. And from an anthropological standpoint, it's the oldest, most ancient part of the human being. It goes way back. It's really not very different from what the dinosaurs had or what a lizard has. Okay, so what does the reptile brain do? What's its function? Survival. We are built to survive. And so the reptile brain, no matter, we become adults, we've got the reptile brain, and whenever we perceive the possibility of attack, not attack itself, mind you, but just the possibility of attack, reptile brain goes off, fires a synapse, and we choose fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Most people have heard fight or flight. Some have heard about freeze. A lot of people haven't heard about fawn. Yes. Fawn means to surrender. It's the small dog. When the big dog attacks, the small dog gets on its back and exposes its neck, basically saying, you can kill me if you want to. Please have mercy.
And how a lot of people fawn is that they people please. They fawn through, some form of codependent behavior where it's, oh gosh, I'm just going to do whatever Scott needs so that I don't have to, there's no conflict and he just gets what he wants and I'll just give myself away. So, it's something like that.
That sounds kind of pretty good, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, no, but it doesn't work. That's right. It doesn't.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't work. You know why?
Long-term
resentment builds.
Yeah.
Resentment builds here.
passive
then you expect
aggressive.
it,
Yeah.
and then it gets all.
So anyway, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn are the four reactions when reptile brain takes over. And look, we all get abducted by our reptile brain sometimes. So we want to learn, what are the things that trigger me? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but what are my triggers? What are my veils of past pain? What are those people or situations that are likely to set me off?
Mhm.
Which is a lifelong discovery, because we have to learn certain things, right? I was working with a client today, and when her husband eats and makes noise, she can't stand it. He goes from being her husband and father of her children that she adores to the most repulsive, disgusting human being ever. And we had to go through and track down why, when he makes noise, when he eats, it's because she grew up with siblings that used to eat Cheetos and make noises and ugly faces as they eat Cheetos at her. So she's traumatized by sound of food and mouths and stuff. But sometimes we don't even remember this stuff. Right? Perfectly human.
She's like, yeah, I'm seeing it right now. He's like crunching away and like doing like
Totally
human
enjoying his
things.
meal.
He's
Right.
like, oh, and she's like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill you. He's just like happy-go-lucky feeding himself like humans need to do. They need to eat, right?
Right. And that's the thing, we get
Oh,
triggered about all sorts of stuff. We need to know our triggers.
yes.
Okay, so we've got this reptile brain. Here's another thing to remember, that as we learn how to calm our nervous system, we are less likely to become abducted by the reptile brain. And here's the most important part of all that. The majority of the time that our reptile brain is triggered, it's our own thought.
Yes.
We're playing over and over in our memory what he did that drove you crazy, what she did that was disrespectful, what the world did, right? What Trump did, whatever it is, we trigger our own reptile brain through our thoughts.
So, have you seen the meme, Scott, that's going around recently? And it's this woman, and she's like, here's one frame, and she's like crying, and there's a guy that comes up, and he's like, well, what's wrong? And then in the next frame, she's like, I made up a zillion stories in my head of things that weren't true, and I hurt my own feelings.
I have not seen that, but that we got to find that meme. That's it. That's what we're teaching.
It's the thing, right?
That's it right here. Okay.
So, yes. Oh, good.
No. Well,
So stepping out of the reptilian brain is really not running that painful thought, creating a neural pathway, creating a deeper emotional connection to that place. Like each time you run a memory, you actually distort the memory. You distort it in the place that you are now living in. So the state of emotion that you are now in is how you're going to remember it again next time. That's why eyewitness testimonials won't allow them, because each time you remember something, it distorts it and it makes it complicated, right? And so each time you're remembering it, you're creating a neural pathway to go directly towards that thought. So instead of, I'm telling myself the story that so-and-so's a jerk, you're like, oh, I'm actually having this experience and I'm feeling sadness around it. And I wanted connection. How would you manage this and get out of your reptilian brain, Scott?
Well, what you're saying is actually, and I'll answer that by segueing to describing the frontal lobe.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way out of the reptile brain is to change our neural pathway to the frontal lobe, also known as the forebrain. And that's where the empathy center of the brain is and the observer part of the brain is. And I always love to tell the story of the Dalai Lama. And some of you who have come to my classes or been on other onlines, you've heard me tell it before, but it's such a powerful story.
Don't worry, Scott, it takes about 7 times for anyone to remember anything. So,
okay. All right. So the Dalai Lama, a few years ago, allowed brain researchers to hook up electrodes to his brain and track his synapses and track how this obviously pretty extraordinary human being thinks, how his brain works. And the remarkable thing they discovered was that at all times, his synapses were firing in the frontal and temporal lobes. Never once did it fire in the reptile brain. And yet they challenged him. Towards the end of the research, they showed him photographs of Chinese soldiers burning down a Tibetan temple. And they asked him, how do you feel? How do you feel when you look at these pictures? And he looked at the pictures and he wept. So he wasn't stuffing his feelings, he cried. But his synapses continued to fire in the frontal lobe. They took it one step further. They said, well, how do you feel? What do you think about Chinese soldiers murdering Tibetan people, raping Tibetan women? What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? And again, the Dalai Lama wept and was very quiet for a while. And they kept saying, well, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And finally he said, it reminds me that I must pray equally for the Chinese soldiers as I do for my Tibetan people. Now, the point of that is the movement of the human species, going from just reptile brain reactivity to frontal lobe responsiveness. And in the frontal lobe, he saw the big picture, and he had equal compassion for himself and compassion for the Chinese soldiers and compassion for the Tibetan people.
Yeah.
That's the answer to your question, Trish. We want to learn how to see the big picture and to have enough compassion for all concerned.
Right. And if you all were following, the researchers noticed that it was still his frontal lobe that was lighting up as he was, and that's why they were asking, why, like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Because they were so fascinated that it was still the frontal lobe that's lighting up instead of this reptile brain section of your whole, reactiveness. It's amazing. I found the article. I don't know if you know that, but I did. I found the article. It was amazing.
Actually, you should send it to me because I should read it again because I've been telling the story for years and I don't know how my story has evolved.
No, it's good. It's good.
Oh, okay. Okay,
good. They also did a few other monks as well. So it was like multiple.
Okay.
Finding, I'm a big supporter of self-love and self-sourcing. And the way to really develop empathy is to start with yourself. Is that if you want to build the capacity at compassion and empathy for others, is really to learn how to do it for yourself, learn how to give it to you, and learn how to really expand your heart in really loving yourself and really accepting who you are. And that's the first step. Because when you're really upset with one of your family members at Christmas dinner or something, well, you're really having a judgmental moment, and that's probably a place that you judge yourself too, right?
I think this would be a great place to segue from we put the spotlight on you and have you teach the self-love, self-empathy tool.
Yes. So as most of you know, I have the Self-Love Show with Dawn Light on Thursday mornings, and this is our prolific and profound tool that we use every week. And the reason why is that when you can really expand your heart through loving yourself and accepting yourself more deeply, that's the places where we can build better relationships. And that's also the place that you can come from knowing what your wants and needs are, right? And then you can start hearing another person's wants and needs. And so I invite you all to close your eyes for a moment and it's only going to take a few minutes, just 3 minutes of your time to learn this tool. So go ahead and close your eyes just for a moment. Take a nice deep breath in and run a painful thought or a thought that you've been obsessing over or something that's really grasping, you're grasping it and you're gripping in your mind, and just give it 15 seconds. Yes, that one. That's the one. And keep running it. And as you really hear it, take another nice deep breath and let it sit in your chest. What are you feeling? Is there sadness? Is there anger, frustration?
What else is there for you? Are you scared? Do you feel not unsafe? Are you worried? Can you really just drop from the thoughts again into your heart center? What are you feeling there? What's under those thoughts? And speak it out loud or type it in. But really take note of that. And as you feel into that place, drop down into your solar plexus. What do you want? What's the need that wants to be met right now? That feeling is a direct pointer to a want and need, a value. And I invite you just to sit with what is it that you want. Maybe if you're afraid, you want safety. Maybe if you feel alone, you want connection. Or if you're mad, maybe there was a boundary that was crossed, or something that you feel really passionate or unheard. What do you want there? Do you want to be seen, heard, felt, connected, acknowledged? And I invite you to type what you want in. Type in what the want, need, and value that wants to be met now. And really take note of that. So as you know, all of us humans really want, we want to get someone else to meet our needs. I want Scott to meet my needs. And I want so-and-so and da da da. And I really invite you to, again, take this want and need and ask yourself, if there's a person that you want this from, are they capable or willing? Are they capable or willing to meet this for you? And even if the answer is yes, how can I meet this need myself right now and meet them in that place? And that's just for you. Write it down. Write down how you can self-source meeting your own needs and coming back to the space, opening your eyes, come back now, here, type in what you found. I'm just curious. I'm going to look at the comments on Facebook right now.
Now come on in. We've got 63 shares on Facebook today. Thank you, Sign Network,
Wow.
for sharing this out to so many places, but not too many people are commenting yet. So don't be shy. We love hearing from you. And even some of you that come into the Zoom room, and I put the Zoom room ID into our Facebook chat, come on into the Zoom room. Ask us some questions there. We can even bring you in and interact with us a little bit, because we love to make it interactive. And since we don't have guests, it's Trish and I tonight, which is intentional because we want to make tonight a teaching night, like really sharing, because it's the holidays and it's difficult people and it's difficult times and it's, recovery from the election and a lot of stuff. And so
It's
learning stressful. So we said, okay, let's help people learn how to manage the triggers. So that's why we're doing this. Thank you, Adriana. She writes, I can only meet my own needs if I can get him to take all of his stuff and move out.
Super honest. I'm thank you for being honest.
And I don't mean to laugh over my painful imagining of that situation.
Ayata, I hope I pronounced that right. I also want kindness and respect. Anyone out there really, does that resonate with you? Is that a want and a value that you hold? Kindness and respect? How about you, Scott?
It's like everything, when our need for kindness and respect is met, we just can relax. But when it's not met, especially by somebody we really care about, somebody who's really important to us, oh my gosh, that is so hard. This is so hard. Thank you, Ayata. Thank you. We're here to help, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to bring up the list of universal human needs for a minute, because this might help people also just get in touch with some of the values, some of the things that really matter to them in life. And again, this is the list of pretty much every significant universal human need and value. So here we go. So as you look at this list, what jumps out at you? And the words in bold are categories. And what's important about this list is it helps us to understand ourselves and each other more often. If you're ever unhappy and you don't know why, you're angry and you can't figure out why, look at this list and ask yourself, which of these words have not been met in my life right now? Which of these words am I craving?
Over 5 years ago, I went to one of your classes, Scott, and there was another one that sat on my refrigerator forever. I mean, it got like bleached out, and and I gave some away. Like, people still have this on their refrigerator because it gives you an opportunity to really like tap into that. I mean, and I also invite you and I, Scott, and everyone watching to type in your top 3 values. Don't drop it yet. And as I run through the list, the things that are so important to me is growth, is belonging, connection. Oh, and there's one that I was like, oh yeah, that's the one. And the ones that are you're seeing on the screen, which ones are the most important to you?
Boy, most important. That's hard to choose sometimes.
Well, ever moving, of course, but the ones that you find yourself resting on.
Yeah. By the way, Wendy Eden Harris writes, one of the things she learns from Tony Robbins is everything I need is within me now. So thank you for that, Wendy. Thank you. Big 3 for me right now would be to be seen clearly is very important to me.
Mm.
Obviously, communication is very, very important to me. That's what I teach all day long. And I'll go vulnerable. What I notice that I'm really missing is intimacy. I have tremendous, all day long, I'm experiencing emotional intimacy with my clients. So my need for emotional intimacy has been beautifully met. But I've been single for over a year now, which is the longest I've gone ever as an adult. And so, yeah, I noticed that I'm missing a lot of the connection words: affection, intimacy, sexual expression, closeness. Those are the ones that I'm missing the most. So those kind of jump out at me as, oh, I miss that, you know? And in the days of COVID, I happen to be living with 2 other, male friends who I love, but, we're not big huggers, and we're not going to parties and seeing friends where we normally hug. We're not having Love Coach Academy retreats that are just big cuddle fests. So I'm missing that level of closeness and affection, connection.
I can see that. Mutuality is one of my big top ones as well.
Yeah.
Just having that balance, or that, or just having some movement there. And I think that a lot of viewers and a lot of our clients and a lot of the people who come to our workshops also want that. They want some balance. That's half of the reason why I teach the codependency work. It's so important to find balance, or to find that where everyone feels like it's a flowing dance.
I want to thank Frode. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Frode Emil. What a beautiful word. Name, Fagerjord. It might be Scandinavian. Writes, the ones that are most important to him is sadness, love, gratitude, source, and connection. Thank you for writing that. Safety, deep soul connection, and beauty is what Ayada just wrote.
Yes. How many people who are watching can relate to that? To any of the things that we shared? We're living in the time of COVID. We're living in a time that's really weird to get your community needs met, and how things, like, the world is just different right now. there's COVID protocols and there's testing and there's like, how does one physically connect with someone? And how does, there's lots of money stuff up because some people don't have jobs anymore, or they're staying at home for days on end. Like how to manage difficult behaviors, not only in another person, but in yourself, right? Because it always comes back to how you're relating to the issue. Dawn, my partner says, Dawn, my colleague and partner from the Self-Love Show, she always says from her schooling, it's not the issue that's the issue, it's how you relate to the issue that's the issue. And I always rest on that. I always sit back and think about, well, how am I relating to what's happening? Am I making it the villain? Am I choosing to be the victim? Am I playing this whole cycle out? Or am I actually choosing empowerment and connection? Am I choosing to be empowered, and am I choosing to be connected? Or am I just being like, Scott's a dick and this is how it works? And I'm like the most pure, sweet angel.
Hey, I want to address Wendy Eden Harris wrote some really powerful things. I've been looking at some of the comments on Facebook. So Wendy, I'm going to read and respond. Wendy wrote, I want a loving, heart-centered family that appreciates and communicates. My son basically has no tolerance to hear me or share what he feels. We don't talk about feelings. I have participated, and that's what she said about the part about Tony Robbins teaching everything I need is within me now. And then the last thing she says is, see, a lot of people are into drama. You know, the saying, don't sweat the small stuff. I feel like many people do sweat the small stuff. So thank you, Wendy. And
so many thoughts about that.
I want to address the son first. It's really tragic. We live in a culture that when little boys are growing up and they're playing on the playground, they are taught that showing feelings is for girls or for sissies. And usually they hear much worse words than that. Some poor kid gets hit by the ball out on the playground and he cries. And oh my God, all the other boys circle around and call him pussy, faggot, really horrible. Wimp, right, exactly, wuss. And it's tragic on so many levels because it's dehumanizing. And it's also establishing that feelings are feminine and for a ugly idea of feminine.
Yes.
Right?
Emotional. Oh, they're emotional.
Right.
Like it's bad.
Right. Yeah. How many times we say, oh, stop throwing those negative feelings at me. Oh my God, I can't deal with your bad emotions. Right.
You're so dramatic.
And you know what? There's no such thing as a bad emotion. There's no such thing as a negative feeling. There's uncomfortable feelings, but they're not bad. They're not negative. They're part of the human experience. But unfortunately, back to, Wendy, your son is still at an age where he hasn't learned that yet. He hasn't unlearned what he was taught when he was out on the playground or, going, hanging out with his male friends. And so he is disconnected from his own feelings. But one thing I want to say is that almost all of us have certain feelings that we're comfortable with and certain feelings that we're uncomfortable with. It's quite common for men to be comfortable with being angry. And so anger becomes a cover emotion. So when a man actually is feeling scared or actually feeling confused or actually feeling sad, he might choose to display anger to cover the uncomfortable emotions that he doesn't want to show. Conversely, some women are not willing to get angry, so instead they'll cry because they've made peace with crying. They've made peace with sadness. Now, anger is not bad. Sadness is not bad. They are both natural human emotional reactions and responses that we need to learn how to be true to ourselves not use anger as an entitlement to be hurtful to another person, not use sadness or crying as a manipulative tool, but to just, if we're angry, we're angry. If we're sad, we're sad. And for us to create safety for anybody's uncomfortable emotions.
Absolutely. You know, so when I first heard, when you first read it, what occurred to me, the question that I wanted to ask was, oh, I wonder if he feels safe to share.
Mm.
And I wanted to tell a story about this incredibly sensitive and absolutely lovely man that I was dating. And his emotions were so intense for him that the second I would see him, it took us almost 2 hours of just silent holding to even speak the first words to each other after weeks of not seeing each other.
Wow.
And it was really intense for him. And it was really intense for me. I wish I had had better tools or had better practices in this moment of my life, because what he really wanted, and it took me actually some time to understand what he really wanted, was to be seen and heard. Like, he wanted just to be heard. When he did speak, he wanted me to connect with deep empathy. And I just didn't have the capacity because I wanted my needs to be met, right? I was excited and I wanted to show that. And so when I think about your son, I was like, oh, I wonder if he feels seen, just because this beautiful man really, he wanted to be seen. And then my thoughts kind of drifted to when people love drama. And I've thought about some friends that I have, and even my own experience is when I've replayed a story multiple times, or when you fight with someone, how they replay the story, or they're like, well, you did this. It's actually what occurred to me is like, you actually want to just be seen and heard, and the other person just isn't doing it. So you say it louder, or you say it like around here, or you say it around there, or you use a different language, or and you're just like, I just want to be seen and heard. I just want to have someone empathize with me, not sympathize, not make me like, oh, poor Trish, but just to like, oh, shit, I know where you're at. I see that. And I feel that. And yeah, I mean, what I wrote down was, it's a strategy to get your needs met. What are your strategies to get your needs met? What are your negative strategies to get your needs met? Because we all have them. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people yell or fight or scream. Some people cry. Last thing. So Scott, one of your other commandments, and I've heard you say it so many times. I don't know if you have a list, but this should be on it. No name calling.
If you could just remove that, like, don't call Scott a mrr, or don't call Trisha mrr, like, if you could just eliminate that piece, that judgment. I mean, that's like one word. How would that shift your family relationship today?
Well, thank you. Thank you for, it is one of my favorite commandments. And let me talk about that for a minute. Yep. So what we want to do is, when somebody's doing something that bothers us, we want to differentiate between the being and the behavior. But when we name call, and Marshall Rosenberg, who I was blessed to travel and teach with and get to know, taught me this. When we name call, we are assigning an enemy image to that person. So it's no longer Lisa, it's now she's a bitch. It's no longer Joe, it's he's an asshole.
Dick.
And so any of those words, dick, bitch, cunt, asshole, jerk, idiot, any of those words are very dehumanizing.
Yeah.
Very dehumanizing. And what it does is it gets us off track of understanding that my problem isn't because he's an asshole. My problem is with his behavior of whatever it might be, right? Whenever we have a problem with somebody, it's not with who they are as a being. All beings are beautiful as beings. I believe that, right? I believe we're all created equal. We all are connected to divinity. We are all part of this one unified field. We're all spiritual beings having a human experience. But when we assign an enemy image to somebody because we don't like what they believe, or we don't like the choice they're making, or we don't like a behavior of theirs, we dehumanize them and then we can hurt them. Soldiers don't go to war to kill the individuals and the human beings on the other side of the battlefield. They go
John,
to kill.
Ben, Sally, Janine, they don't go to be like, oh, I'm gonna like kill that person's son or daughter.
Right. They go to kill the evil terrorists, the dirty Nazis, the evil Japs, right? I mean, that's the very first thing they do is dehumanize the enemy so they can drop bombs on the enemy, right? But we do the same thing in our relationships. When we dehumanize each other by assigning an enemy image, that makes it more easy to see them as bad, stupid, wrong, evil, and now we're entitled to be hateful towards them, or to be arrogant towards them, or self-righteous towards them, or whatever it might be. And that does not create peace in the world. If you want to create peace in the world, make a commitment right now. No more enemy images.
I also just want to make a point. No more enemy image with yourself. Like, how often do you dehumanize yourself? Because this is where it starts, right? You're like, oh, I did that thing, or I did whatever is the story, right? The story I'm telling myself is that I'm blah, 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 blah. And you dehumanize yourself. And then it makes it easier to be that judgy and mean to someone else because, oh, like that person did that thing that I don't like, that I do. So that person's just wrong and bad, and I can just make them wrong, you know? And we're all, I mean, if Ram Dass taught me anything, he taught me a lot. But if he taught me anything, it's that I am that as well. The things that I hate, I spend a lot of time hating. And that is part of me then. I am now creating that inside of me. Gosh. So
my mom used to always say, but for the grace of God, there go I. But for the grace of God, there go I. And another good one is when somebody's really bothering you and you are really struggling, you really think that person's bad, stupid, wrong, an asshole. Run through your mind, there's God fully experiencing itself as Donald Trump or as whoever it is that triggers you, right? Or you can even take it a step further. There I am fully experiencing myself as Joe, as Sally, as whoever it might be. To just start remembering that, oh yeah, it's all a dance of divinity. Now, that doesn't mean we condone hurtful behavior. No. So remember the other part of the equation, differentiate between the being, see the beauty, the divinity in the being, see yourself in the being, but it is true that they have a behavior that's not meeting your values, or it's not meeting your needs, or it's at least threatening your needs and values. And so I'm going to use Trump as an example, and I'm not doing this as a political statement. I want to make this very, very clear. I respect equally people who voted for Trump and people who didn't. But let's just say that I'm someone who perceives that he tells a lot of mistruths, a lot of things that aren't true. So making an enemy image out of him would be saying he's a liar. But what's more accurate is that when I hear Donald Trump make certain accusations, it doesn't meet my value for honesty. See the difference? See, I'm bringing it back to myself. It's not about him being a liar or a bad person or evil. It's about I have a value for honesty that isn't being met by the way I experience him. And I'm even saying it's by how I experience him. He may or may not be telling the truth. Maybe he is, but I'm not experiencing it that way. So it doesn't meet my value for honesty. And this is a really important distinction in how we manage difficult people. We don't make an enemy image out of them. We don't escalate and go to war with them. We recognize what is it that they're doing that bothers me? And which of my universal human needs, that same list we looked at earlier, which of my universal human needs are not being met by the behavior of this person?
I often, when it comes down to things like that, I'm looking at their behavior and I'm like, well, when I've done that, what is it that I needed or wanted in that space? So if I was lying, or if I was choosing to behave in some way, I'm sitting back and I'm like, oh, what was my want and need there? I wanted to feel connected. I wanted to be seen and I wanted to be appreciated. Or I didn't want to cause trouble, or who knows, And then I try to find empathy from that place, find compassion from that place. And that's one way that I go about getting to where you are, Scott. Getting into that is like, oh, I definitely, I'd come from my feeling place. I want to attach and connect there. That's very womanly of me. Just kidding.
I think it's very beautiful.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, how can I love him there? That's something that I share with my friends, is this concept. Oh, I'm excited to share this place. Is how can I love you there? Like someone will say an insecurity to me, or something that they're scared, or like a negative feeling or experience, and I can love you there. Or if I'm coming with something that's very human, can you love me here? I can love you in your frustration, in your sadness, in your anger. I can love you in your joy. I can love you when you curse and you stub your toe, and I can love you in your lies. I'm not going to say, again, not condoning it, but I can understand where it comes from, right? I'm not saying like, hey, lying is not okay. It's purely not okay. Honesty is the best policy. And why are you lying? What's under that? What's under the behavior, the thought, going to the feeling? Why are you doing that? And really finding a way to connect there, right? Because I want to stay in connection with the people that I've developed relationships with, because I don't have a lot of them. I choose my people wisely and very specifically. So when I see Scott, I'm like, hey, Scott, why did you do this? Or, oh, I actually got really clear why I did this thing. Can I tell you this? How would you say our friendship is in our relationship, Scott?
Beautiful.
I know. And we've gone through things. It's not all like rainbows, butterflies, and unicorn farts.
Do unicorns fart?
Sprinkles and ice cream, I think.
Rainbow dust or something comes out. By the way, just as a slight aside, why do people tell lies? Why are they not honest? It's always around safety. It's always, if you want honesty with someone, you need to make it safe to be honest. If a little kid eats a cookie before dinner, and mom says, "Do you eat a cookie before dinner?" and he says yes, and she slaps him upside the head, do you think he's going to tell the truth next time? Of course not. So if we want people to be honest with us, we have to make it safe to be honest. And if they did something that we may react to, and we want them to be honest about it, we have to learn how to manage our reaction and definitely never make them wrong. Thank them for being honest. Still acknowledge, I notice the impact of that. I feel scared, I feel sad, I feel disappointed, but not you disappointed me or you're bad. Just thank you for being honest. That probably was really courageous to be honest. And it stings, but I still will choose honesty over not knowing what the truth really is. Right? Even if the truth is uncomfortable for me.
I mean, even if it's in the place where it really hurts, like, wow, thank you, Scott, for telling me the truth. Mm-hmm. I'm deeply upset. I want to understand. I can't right now. I can't understand because I'm really upset. I need to take some space, or can I come back into connection? Just like I need to go take a shower or rest or whatever your self-sourcing tool is, but I'm really upset and I love you. And I really appreciate it that you shared that you were brave and courageous to share that with me. Cause I know that I could get really emotional and I could shame you. And there's so many experience is why people lie, right? Yeah.
All right. We've only got a little bit of time left because we're going to make today a little bit shorter. But I want to just kind of go through, we kind of touched on them, but I want to put them together for you. And that's the steps of how to manage difficult behavior in another person, because we promised that's what we're going to do.
Yes.
So all of you out there, whether you're watching the replay or watching us live, do this with us for a moment. And Trish, if you'd be willing to kind of be kind of my sample. So pick a person who has a behavior that bothers you. So everybody watching, listening, whether it's live or watching the replay, pick one person that has one specific behavior that bothers you.
I'll share it.
Okay.
I have a specific person who likes to instigate some sort of fight, some sort of negative kind of like, oh.
Great example.
Okay.
Is there an enemy image that you sometimes assign to this person? Do you sometimes call them a jerk, a brat,
Totally.
obnoxious? What are some of the words you use?
This jerk pushed me past my compassionate capacity. Wow, I was a jerk. Maybe an asshole. Instigator. Mostly it looks like this. Okay. I try not to label it and I just try to express it feeling.
So I'm going to pull up the list of universal human needs again. Which of these words, which of these values are not met by his behavior? When he's pushing you to be aggressive or to fight, and you can name as many of these words as you want. Which of these words are not being met for you?
Okay. Flow, communication, consciousness. Dignity. Harmony. Definitely harmony. Support. Hearing me. Being heard and hearing me. Cooperation, equality, mutuality.
So you're already
self-responsibility.
Okay, so you're over 10. Okay, so let's just point this out for a moment, everybody. You're over 10 of your universal human needs that are not being met. Of course it's upsetting. Just behavior that doesn't mean one of our needs is going to upset us. You're not even through the list yet. You've got 10 universal human needs that are not being met. Of course you're upset. So I'm just going to pull it back up again and just ask people at home, as you're looking at this, drop in. Which of your needs, everybody at home, are not being met or are being threatened by this person's behavior? The person who bothers you, what's the behavior all about that bothers you? Which of these words are not being met?
I'm already on the second step. It comes so naturally now because I'm trained well, thank you, Scott, of Coach Academy, and years of doing other types of work.
While we're looking at the list, then what is the next step? Trish, go ahead and tell us.
The next step is what human needs aren't being met for him or for them.
Or that he's trying to meet through the behavior.
I'll pull it back up, please.
Yeah. So as you
I'm gonna name all of them.
What is he trying to accomplish? Which is of his universal human needs is he trying to meet through his behavior?
Safety, trust. He's trying to meet independence, self-responsibility, definitely self-responsibility, acceptance, compassion, consideration, mutual recognition, respect, being seen, heard, understood, trusted, and to understand. I mean, equality, inclusion, mutuality, expression, sharing. I mean, he's already way over 10. Like, honestly, I think that his behavior or the way that he relates to me is actually, it has more needs being unmet than maybe I even do.
So there it is. And as you drop into that, how's your level of compassion for him?
Gosh, I know, like, I love this person a lot, and I know that he just wants to be held and understood and seen. And it gives me, I mean, I've run this tool on this particular situation so many times, and it really makes him more human. It makes him more just like, I know that you want these things, and I love you, and I know that you're hurting. And what story are you telling yourself? What story am I telling myself? And of course, again, my automatic is to go back into connection, to stay in connection rather than be in disconnect. This person also taught me that the level, gosh, this was such a profound lesson. The person feeling the disconnect is the one disconnected, is the one creating it. Because if it's happening inside of you, it's being created inside of you. It's a belief system that you have. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, how often do you project? You're disconnected right now. You're not even here. Yeah, I thought so. Who's feeling the disconnect? Who's projecting? It's okay. So what am I afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone else following this conversation? And what are you getting out of today's conversation, right? Like, it is really important to take ownership and to really see that person for what they want and need.
We're getting some requests
Yes.
for the list, Universal Human Needs list. So if you all are willing to put your email address either in the Facebook chat comments or in the Zoom room chat, give us your email address and we will send you the list of universal human needs. We'll also send you a few other goodies. We've got a whole document on how to manage difficult behavior in others. And I'm going to pull it up just one more time because a couple of people said, can we see the list again? Mm-hmm. So again, what you're wanting to do is as you think about that person and the behavior they do that bothers you, which of your needs are not being met by the behavior, and which of their needs are they trying to meet by the behavior? Okay, so I'm going to leave that up for a minute or two so everybody has a chance to kind of practice that.
Screenshot it if you want it.
That's right, you can screenshot it. That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And also give us your email address if you want, and we will send you this. You know, she mentioned that I used to, when I was teaching lots of live workshops, pre-pandemic days, I gave this sheet out to everybody. And I would laminate this sheet along with a couple of other of our significant teaching tools. Because, you know, it's just, we need tools. And that's why Trish and I love to teach tools.
Well, I just want everyone to be able to communicate on the same page. I want you to have the relationships that you want. I want you to feel good about yourself. Like, I just want that because I want it for me and I've built it for me and I want it for everybody that I love and everybody I don't love. Because I mean, if we can teach, like, just selfishly for a second, if I can teach my friends and my lovers these tools and they teach their friends and lovers those tools, how much better their relationships can be. And how much better their relationships can be. And then it just like moves out in this beautiful ripple where we're all like finding ways to communicate lovingly and compassionately. I mean, and that is why we do the work that we do. And that's, you know, if you want to learn how to build better relationships and stay true to yourself, Scott and Love Coach Academy and myself have tools for that. If you want support being single, if you want support being in relationship, if you want to know how to be in relationship without being codependent, this is the place, right? We've got those things for you. In fact, Scott and I actually are teaching a class on the 13th?
December 12th. I just pulled that up.
How would I forget? It's my dad's birthday.
Tell us about the class we're teaching, Trish.
So this class is really amazing. This is the second time we've taught it. We learned a great deal of how to really get you in to understanding how to merge, how to get into relationship, how to stay in relationship without losing yourself, without enmeshing into a point where you're codependent and you're a mess and you abandon all your needs, but to really stay in your sovereign space, to stay in your truth, and to find love and compassion and to really merge together in this really beautiful, sweet way, right?
It's going to be powerful. And it's on December 12th. It's a Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There'll be about a 20-minute break.
Yep.
And we really encourage you all to come. And I'll pull up the link where you can register. It's a powerful class. And what I'll even do is if anybody registers tonight, after the class, give me 5 minutes. I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a special code. The code will be, what's today's date? December 27th. So the code will be
November
27th. So the code will be NOV27. And if you put in the code NOV27, we'll give you this class at half price because we love people that watch this show. So give me 5 minutes to go in and do that.
I mean, and if you made it this far, you're actually invested in learning how to communicate and love in a way that really builds relationships, right?
Exactly.
Because you can keep doing the same pattern that you've been doing. And I'm just curious, has it been working for you? Because if you're asking yourself, maybe I should take this class, I just invite you to think maybe it's not working. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's no shame in it because I've had to ask that question multiple times. Like, is this working? You know what the answer was?
I'm putting the link in. So everybody kind of copy this link. There's the link and go to it 5 minutes from now. Mm-hmm. Put in the code NOV27 and you'll get it at 50% off. We'll also email all of you some of these docs, and we'll also send you the link to register, but better to register tonight and get that big discount. There's one last way you can connect with us that we want to share, and that is by going to our main website, which is lovecoachacademy.com. And there's a wonderful thing that our friend Paul Sterling created.
Thanks, Paul.
You'll notice when you go there, right away, there's a drop-down menu here that starts a little quiz. It takes about 2 minutes to take it. And what happens is by taking this quiz, we learn all about you. So I'll just make up single. I'm single and dating. I have been, it's been a year. And then you start filling in just a few things and it lets us know more about you. And then we know which love coach to hook you up with. So for example, if you're single and working with single issues, we're probably going to have you work with Trish. If you're interested in learning how to be another love coach, you're going to work with me. If you're dealing with couple relationship issues, we're probably going to have you talk to Paul and so forth. So fill out the little quiz and you get a free 15-minute discovery session. Free 15-minute discovery session in exchange for filling out the quiz. And really, again, filling out the quiz just helps us to know what's up for you and how we can best support you. Trish?
You know, I really just want to say that for all the single people still watching now and people watching on the replay, there is a really fun Facebook group that's being run by multiple love coaches and some other people in the peripheral community to really give you the support that you want and need. Paul and I are teaching a class called Single to Relationship Ready in 6 weeks, and that's coming up in January. And this particular group, you'll see that class coming up on that group. But you'll also get this really supportive coaches and really excellent advice. If you're really just like, why am I still single? Go there. Like get some places where you can move through codependency, because that's my whole thing. And there's other coaches there that have a lot of other things. We have a coach who's specifically working with sexuality and how to really get into your body and bring more pleasure in your life. We've got, I mean, it's amazing. We've got a polyamorous coach who really helps the people who are not only just single, but poly and dating. Like this is the place for you to really find the necessary tools and support that you want and need.
So I've just pulled it up for everybody to look at. Here it is: secure, sovereign, and single. And there's announcements and fun little memes.
Oh yeah, Camilla is hosting a thing tomorrow at 10:05 with Jessica.
Great.
About how use your insecurities to create stronger relationships with yourself and others. Yes, I'm so proud of those women. I just want you to know. Check it out. It's going to be fabulous.
There you have it. So single opportunities, filling out the survey, taking the webinar with Trish and myself. These are ways to connect with us. And thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate those of you who put comments in. And for any of you that are watching the replay, private message us. And if you private message us and you want to take the webinar, I'll send you a special code. Well, actually, the NOV27 code will be forever. So that'll last whether you're watching tonight or you're watching the replay. I'll actually just set it up so anytime somebody puts in NOV27, they get the webinar for half price.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate that.
I hope you don't mind. I didn't ask your permission first, but I thought it'd be okay because we did that last week. So
permission for what?
To make it half price.
Oh yeah, of course. Scott, if they made it this far, shoot, you get rewarded for doing your work. Sure. I want to reward you for doing your hard work and being a better person. Good job, you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Ayada. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, all of you who were with us and watched, and those of you on Facebook as well. Thank you, Trish, for being my teaching partner.
Love you,
and have a beautiful evening. Have a great weekend, everybody. And yeah, check out the secure single that Camilla and Jessica are doing tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. Take care, everybody. Hope to see you.
See you at Saturday Night Live.